Alrighty, we are live. I'm excited as always about talking about something I think is really important where most people don't have the kind of conversations we're about to have. They don't know what they really want. Something me and Claire were just talking about before the stream started. So let's introduce myself and Claire can introduce herself. Um, I always like to keep it simple and get on to the key points. So first of all, I'm a Muslim and I teach happiness classes for non-Muslims and other Muslims if they're interested as well, based on the teachings of Islam, the tried and tested ideas and principles of Islam that you can see are statistically working in many different ways, or people might not realize, and I do explain how. And I do weekly happiness classes. Do check out the description for the full happiness course where I go from personal to social or relationship issues all the way to global issues, including economics and environment and other stuff like that. So that's my quick introduction. But it's not, I just want to also say two things. Actually, just one thing. Happiness is simple, and that's what I want to show. Anyway, Claire, I love having Claire on. We've been chatting for a while. Always inspiring ideas, quite funny and abrupt. Maybe let's see Claire. What have you got to say about yourself? What would be your intro?
Hello, everybody. I have written a book about secular Quranism, which is intended to raise happiness levels all over the West and perhaps the entire world, because secular Quranism is a moral system that is designed to improve your government. Unfortunately, because many people are intellectually crippled by Islamophobia, they refuse to consider my idea of Sharia for non-Muslims, of all races and religions, because it does not require anybody to change their religion just to agree to live under Sharia, which I know is very difficult. But I think what's happening in Israel could come with a happy ending, because I think if Jews can be persuaded to live under Sharia, and if they're not quite prepared to do it, there is the Sharia light of secular Quranism. And I guess I'm just about bright ideas like that nobody quite likes. But I think I'm happy enough because I like to talk about ideas.
Cool. I mean, I think from our first conversation when we met in Speaker's Corner, when you explained, I don't know, did you explain it then? I'm sure we spoke then. And then just the idea of secular Quranism, I think, is revolutionary and far-sighted. What I mean to say is anybody who's looking at the statistics, they can see Islam is taking over, and Islam is taking over because it works. Compared to all the, let's say, secular ideas, purely secular ideas. Everybody's trying out their theories. The West is trying out their theories, and the result is they're not having children, their relationships are falling apart, and things are getting from bad to worse, and depression is going up, and all that kind of stuff. So if anybody doesn't know what secular Quranism is, it's basically the Quran's rules are so great, Claire says, that everybody should follow them, even if they're not Muslim. And that's it, really. Is that right?
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so people might be wondering what's with my background. Part of the problem with my background is you can never see through the window. This is my actual view through my window, which is because I'm living in Jordan at the moment. I used to live in England, and I love it here, kind of in the middle of nowhere. You can see great empty spaces and a few interesting houses in the background. Okay, so let's get going. I don't like to talk too much. I like to get into things in 5 minutes, probably 10 minutes realistically. I'm going to try to explain my ideas about how, I'm trying to answer the question, can money buy happiness? I'm going to talk about the issues related to it, the in-depth issues related to it. So I love to do a little Let me get this on the right screen. And of course, I love interaction. So if anybody disagrees with me or just wants to say anything, feel free. I'm all, whatever you say doesn't offend me. In fact, helps me explain things in more detail if I've oversimplified a certain idea. Anyway, so I always like to say, what has this got to do with happiness? Clearly, if you can fix this problem about buying happiness, you'll be happier. But I want to put it in a different way. I just write things. Sometimes I write inappropriate things. Now I'm looking at what I've written. But anyway, think about what you wanted when you were small. Me, it would probably have sex once. Okay? The chances are you probably have everything you wished for then. But are you happy now? We always want more. Why? Despite society becoming more affluent, people are getting more depressed, especially in the West. There is something really messed up about that. Happiness is easy. We just have some messed up ideas that we need to get rid of and start being happy now. I sometimes do feel like I shouldn't have to read the script, it's a little bit dull, but anyway, the good thing about it is people can kind of track where we are through my bullet points. So I don't know if you understood what I said there, but in short, people think, I wish we had X, Y, Z, but they don't think if they rewind, look back at when they were small and say, and they probably wanted a lot. They only wanted a few things, and they thought they would be happy, and they probably have those things now. You probably have those things now. I've done all the things that I thought would make me happy, and has it worked? Well, we'll talk about it in a bit. But what do you think about that? Is that a flawed argument at all? That we wished when we were small to have certain things. We probably have those things, and most of us are probably still not happy despite having those things. So that should probably tell us something.
Well, I was thinking of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Have we discussed this? I think we might have.
We have, but we can always talk about it more.
So money is, I think, on the lower scale of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, because the top one is I think, self-actualization and transcendence. If you remember the hierarchy.
I get that. It's kind of like the lower needs of existing at the bottom and the higher needs of meaning and something like that. So can you explain what you just said? And I would say, while you're saying that, very briefly, I would say, actually, money is trying to achieve different things at different times. At some points, it's just to get food into your belly, and some points to achieve higher goals of feeling important or achieving your great, massive goals as well. But anyway, what's this transcendent business and all self-actualization you're talking about?
I think self-actualization is about your dream coming true, which even perhaps as a rich man you can't do. Maybe you want to find true love, and you have the problem of the women only loving you for your money, and I guess if you do get that, you think, oh, but I want to live forever, and you're, it's like, oh, I've had such a wonderful, rich life. It would be such a shame for it to come to an end, and I'm sad about, dying, and I guess belief in God would deal with this fear of extinction.
That's true. So, what I think you've just highlighted there is the never-ending needs and wants. Whatever you get, you want more. Let's just throw in some comments here. So we've got our regulars who've been on the show. Great idea, but the difficulty with secular Quranism is the problem of everyone agreeing on the same
moral principles. But they don't have to. They don't have to. They just have to agree on what the rules should be, and then I just don't see how anyone could say, oh, the 7 Noahide laws, they're terrible, they're so crazy and stupid, I don't want to have anything to do with them. So I just don't see what the problem is. And once you agree on the 7 Noahide laws, then you can rack the 4 Gentile religions and then arrive at the most Noahide Gentile religion, and that would be Islam.
I agree with both of you at the same time, because sometimes things seem so simple. These laws are just good for you, but people don't want to listen to Claire's ideas. But if it was God's ideas and they knew God existed, somehow that just works better. Maybe that's the kind of the solution to that little problem. What's this, Claire? You posted a comment yourself. What did it say? The 7 Noahide laws are pretty universal, aren't they? Oh, you've been debating already. Side debating. Okay. All right. So I want to get to, I always say something and then I don't do it. I want to get through the answers really quickly. I'm going to whiz through them. Okay. So I'll read this, but most people don't understand it, so I'm gonna revert back to it once I've explained a few things. Okay, so whenever I talk about things, I like to stick from the Holy Quran and sometimes from the sayings of Prophet Muhammad, which are basically an explanation of the Quran, like the wisdom of the Quran explained, as it were, in bite size. Okay, so what is the problem? Okay, here are the 3 problems people have in finding happiness through things or relating to things. I'll just explain it this way. So most people don't know why they work so hard, is a little thing I want to say before. So I think this whole discussion is great because it will put in front of people their worries and their fears that they've only had subconsciously, and most people don't have these conversations. So let me suggest some ideas that sound so stupid, but most of us suffer from. Success means be like those with more. If you ever ask somebody what it means to be successful, they won't say about how they need less stuff. They will always say how, or not always, but most people who are miserable and suffering, which is most people, they always say like, oh, if only I had this, and if I only had that, then I would be happy. In the West, we've developed the most stupid definition of success, which is have more than you have. Then by that definition, you'll always be miserable. The second thing, and this is another thing that this is one of the great struggles. Okay, people, first of all, people say they're honest to themselves and they know themselves. That's just such a lie. It's like being pretending you know how your brain works. You know that who knows how their brain works like a neurosurgeon does? Next to nobody, right? So how do you know like how your mind works? Because you say, oh, I hear my thoughts. No, well, then you would be the greatest psychologist if you knew everything. So most people don't know what their thoughts are. And so coming to this point, most people deny that they are in fear of other people's opinions. And I'll prove that very briefly. We want all sorts of things that we don't need. Why do we need this expensive car and whatever? Deep down, all it is, we need to prove to somebody that we are of value, we are important. And even worse than that, because of the way Western individualism works, is you're not good enough just to have stuff that satisfies you. You have to be better than other people. And that's the recipe for being miserable if you're in competition with everybody, including your friends. And then there's the fear of deprivation. Just one day something will go wrong, and if I haven't accumulated tons of stuff to protect me for that one day of the ridiculous idea, I was asking my wife just a second ago, what do you need? And she goes, well, 100k would be good. I said, what would you do with 100,000 pounds or dinars, whatever? Says, when World War III happens, I will have land and have my own water, and then I won't be thirsty. And I thought, well, you're going to have a lot more problems than, when there's a nuclear war, just about water. You probably need food as well and stuff like that. But anyway, so we have all sorts of fears. Maybe that fear sounds silly to you, but your deep down fear is probably really stupid as well. I'm not calling you stupid. I'm calling myself stupid. I think it's a very helpful thing to know that all human beings are very stupid. Any study of psychology, I always say, look at Milgram's experiment. If you don't want to study the whole of psychology, just study Milgram. Okay, you'll realize how stupid people are. We're easily manipulated. Uh, anyway, so that's a problem. Three problems. I will talk to you in a second, Claire, and let you participate. But I am desperate to just get to it really quickly. So, fear of God. Okay. Um, Solutions. Fear of God. I'm going to do this really quickly, and I won't try to properly explain it, but just roughly articulate it. Makes other opinions irrelevant. So when you have a fear of God, and my wife goes, "Oh, that's a terrible thing to say. Like, why does religion have to be so miserable that you have to fear God?" I'm just saying there are lots of tools that religion provides, but this is the most powerful one, and it works because when people have an awareness of God, they do things that are actually good for them because God just wants them to do good things. So, in short, when you fear God, everybody's opinions becomes irrelevant, and therefore you stop worrying and you stop being a slave to other people's opinions. And the other thing is, when you have fear of God, like, you have the long-term view. You, like, the one example of how stupid we are is we forget that we're going to die. Like, when was the last time you thought about your death? Right? It's a very helpful tool. Okay, so if you're going to die, and even better, what the whole point of this life is, you make long-term choices rather than short-term choices to make yourself look good or something in front of other people's eyes. And then that is definitely going to lead to happiness, like long-term, but also meaningful, I should say. The things that really make you happy are the things that God wants you to do, which is through fear of God. And that's not just, well, I said I'm not going to over-explain it. I'll explain it in more detail afterwards. General spiritual practices. So this is all coming from this verse, which I'll read really quickly in a second. So general spiritual practices like being thankful to God, the Quran, like all the prayers in Islam always pretty much start with, "Oh, thank you, God. All thanks belongs to God." And every time you say that, you go, "Oh, God!" All those you start thinking of lots of all the things you're lucky for, and that really helps. And socializing at the mosque, you have to go to the mosque 5 times a day if you can, and all that kind of stuff. And doing all these things, they generally make you happy. And I'm splitting it into two kind of opposites, right? But I'm not even going to explain how they're opposites in a second, or opposite ends of the spectrum of benefits of it. So there's one that's like the mindset, and this is kind of like the actual practical result. You'll see God helping you, so you worry less. And then finally, the final category is be generous. When you're generous, makes you realize you can do with less. So when you give stuff away and you're still happy, you go, "Oh, okay, I'm less of a slave to the things I have." So you stop feeling that the things you own you. I love that quote from that was a great movie. What was that called? Fight Club. Anyway, and then finally, and the opposite end of this kind of mindset is you feel successful every day. So, how do you feel successful every day? When you start being generous towards people and making other people's lives better, that's real success. And then this is a quick summary. All that stuff was a summary of this. So fear God as best as you can and listen and obey. So this is kind of like the spiritual practice bit, and spend in the cause of in his cause, basically be generous towards other people. That's his cause, just being good to other people. God doesn't need anything from you. Okay. It will be good for you. How will it be good for you? It will get rid of your covetousness, your need for more and more stuff to protect you from the one day that thing will go wrong, something might go wrong. And that is the true definition of success. Whew. Claire, you may talk, please. Did any of that make sense? Should I go from the top? Is there anything that, what do you remember from all of that? Anything that stands out so far?
I was posting my money quotes in the chat.
Okay,
And
that's all right. That's all right. Okay, let's whiz through the chat since you were doing that. So let's go. Maslow's hierarchy of needs for people to know, to check that out. That's useful. It's always good to learn about how the mind works and what we really need. Noahide laws are very unfair on Hinduism, especially relating to the concept of idol worship. That's interesting. So when I say interesting, I'm not sure what to say about that. Like, I'm not sure if you're joking or what. Uncle, I call him Uncle. Both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought. Yes, yeah. I think everything starts with thoughts. That's why we're talking here. We're not physically doing anything, but we're sharing ideas that make everything else happen in life. Good things and bad things. In general, people need more than money to be happy. Yeah, and they think, yeah, cool. I agree. People don't eat money directly. It's not the money that sells. They're hoping to get something through the money, and I would say people are trying to get the wrong. The real problem is not the money itself, but trying to getting the wrong things through money, like the flawed definition of success, being scared of other people, say buying stuff you don't need to appease or please people you don't care about, and then always being scared of stuff, so keep buying more stuff that you don't need to protect yourself from this one awful day that might never ever come. Claire's unhappiness, here we go. Claire's unhappiness could be down to her not actually being a Muslim. Okay, we're just having fun here, right? Yeah, I would agree though. I would agree that being a Muslim definitely makes you happier though. Money can't buy friends, but you can get better class of enemy. That's quite funny. Okay. You just get different problems, I would say, with money. One problem that comes to mind is I've got friends of all different kinds, but let's say one rich, very privileged person, and you just become more and more weak and soft, and then you need the right shoes, and everything has to be just right because your life's too comfortable. Christianity is even less Noahide than the idolatrous Hinduism. Okay.
Could we one day discuss idolatry? Because I don't think Ulrich understands a problem with idolatry. I think a lot of people just don't care. And I think it might be useful as a Muslim, I don't know, to explain why idolatry is a bad thing.
That's it. So we can do it next week then. So on Thursdays I do the random topics. It used to be Saturdays as well. But anyway, we'll keep it on Thursday. So that's done. That will be an interesting topic. And maybe Ulrich would like to. It's not Ulrich really. I always forget his name because he doesn't use his name, Nazish or something like that. But I'll call him Uncle. Cool. And we'll check through more quotes because Ulrich or Uncle has already replied to what you've said. But let's go through this one bit at a time. Success means be like those with more. When I ask people, some people, I think if they're a little bit honest enough, I talk to a lot of people about their problems and stuff like that. I have friends who just call me especially just to share or work through ideas because basically nobody does that. And some people are honest enough to say they don't really know why they're working so hard despite having lots of stuff. I mean, tell me how I'm wrong, Claire, I suppose, if you want. Success means to be like those who have more. Would you agree that that's most people's idea of success, to have more than they have? Or what do you think?
Well, I would define happiness as getting what you want, and people define success with happiness, and because you're happy when you are successful in getting what you want, and most people want money.
Tell me one thing you got recently.
I got. Oh, you mean in the way of shopping? What did I buy recently?
You see, okay, this is maybe. Okay, so this is good. Working through an idea, right? When somebody says want, It's too vague what they want. That most people don't even know what they want. It's too vague. Okay, and
I want validation. If it's a direct question, other than saying,
good.
what did you buy recently that made you happy? I wouldn't be able to say what it is. But if you said what has pleased you
Okay,
recently,
validation.
it would
Let's
be
take that.
validation.
Cool. Okay, that was very honest because most people can't be that honest, right? Okay, so okay, why would you want validation?
Because it would confirm the correctness of my solution.
Okay, so that means you're a slave to people's opinion because whether you're right or wrong, that's good in itself. For me, I would say I share an opinion, like, and if people benefit from it, that's good. But I really don't care. Like, it's kind of boring. Now, I'll tell you, it's not that I just don't care. It's kind of boring if somebody doesn't understand anything I'm saying, right? But that's why I do live streams. So if maybe the person I'm talking to, not you necessarily, but the person I'm talking to doesn't understand, I hope maybe one person understands, right? And I know I could do far more sensational videos because you get loads more views, but like I don't because I think about talking about things that actually matter. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is I really don't. I suppose I'm trying to prove that I don't care what people think. And the validation, okay, it's not about me trying to prove that I don't care what other people think. I suppose just putting the ideas out there. Like if you need validation, don't do that to yourself, is what I'm trying to say. What do you think about that idea? Let's just stick on this thing a little bit. Like, why do you need validation?
Because it's a measure of success.
Okay, I'm worried that we're getting in a circular way, in the circular argument here. But, okay, okay. Yeah, so your idea of success would be to be validated, and I think whatever.
Yeah. So people sort of paid me lots of money to say what I say and to buy my and bought my book in droves. Then it would be a form of validation, and then I would feel successful and happy. But I guess my source of happiness would not be I just want lots of money. Because that was never my, kind of stated intention.
Yeah. So I would say, because one of the things I try to avoid doing is like to be overly trying too hard to convince an idea. I think it's enough to share one or two ideas related to one thing and let people ruminate over it. And I think people do change over time when they let the ideas ruminate or fester in their minds and stuff like that. So all I would say is you claim that you'll be happy when people validate you, okay, but you're already putting your psychology and your mindset in a weak form. So it's like rich people, they feel like they'll be happy when they're richer, and that doesn't satiate their need, because in reality we've seen this all the time, you just need more stuff. So when you have a mindset where you want to be validated, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but I'll try anyway. You're accepting a very dangerous and weak mindset, which is I need some random idiot's point of view. Like, they're probably, human beings are dumb. That's my starting point.
Right? But I wouldn't care about the idiot's validation. Obviously, I want validation from high status people.
See, it just gets harder so it's just going to get harder and harder, because when somebody accepts you, this high status person accepts you, then you might, it's like the chase. It's like, oh, maybe he's not so high status. And of course you will tell yourself that, one day when Professor X finally accepts what I've got to say, then I will be happy. But you'll find that loads of people don't even know Professor X and don't care about Professor X, and Professor X dies the next day, and then it's just, I won't over-explain it. I'm just saying that's just like any other kind of validation, being richer or something, you need more money. You got validation from one person, you need more validation from somebody who's more expert and more amazing and stuff like that. So you can give me a comeback to that if you want, but I'm not gonna. What do you think about that? And then we move on.
Well, I suppose the ultimate validation is the validation of history or God, if you believe in this sort of thing. And I suppose if God, wishes to validate you, that there would be clear signs of, success. So,
That's very interesting you say that, because I think that's a misunderstanding of prophets. And like, prophets really don't care what everybody else thinks. They're always going against the grain, and they're not getting these amazing miraculous signs to be validated. They're just out of kindness trying to help other people who are just making their lives difficult, and prophets are there to make your life better, right?
Well, that's actually what I think I'm doing. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just going to give up if I don't get any validation. I'm just saying it would be nice, but I feel compelled to propagate my message.
I tell you what, maybe okay. This is, I suppose, maybe it's a better way, another way of saying it, and maybe a better way. It's like, oh god, it's there, but okay. So you're saying you want validation. That's a one day I will be happy thing, right? And even that might not work out. And the chances are, if we're realistic, that probably won't work out. If we know how everybody else works, we probably know that's not going to work out. But how about being happy right now? And you can be happy right now if we tapped into what you just said, which is, I'm here just to help people. And I shared an idea, and I did my best. And if people understand it, and most people, you know what, guess what? Most people will understand a decent idea, right? And you might have changed their life, maybe 1%. You don't even know if you're going to change their life, because you won't track them and follow them, for the rest of their years alive, So all I'm saying is, if I'm trying to keep it really short, is like, enjoy. I feel lucky, first of all, that you're here, that other people are listening, and maybe they might benefit from it. But really, it's completely out of my hands. I feel honored. This is the way I see it, because I always see it from like a God point of view. I feel honored that God has given me this opportunity, that I've got enough cushier lifestyle that I can do this in the evenings and stuff, and share important things, and maybe make a difference. But I've got no idea, and that's enough for me. That's enough for me. It's like, out of all the things I could do, I might.
Well, that's my position too.
Cool. So then I'm not. But then, okay, cool, great. Because then in that case, I'm not. But there's no validation there for me. There's like, I've done my bit, job done, and I'll do it again and again and again, and because it's fun.
Yes, I do it because it's fun. Yeah. Because if I hated it, I wouldn't do it. If I was doing it for the money, I wouldn't do it. If I was doing it for the fame, I wouldn't do it.
Cool. So anybody listening to the conversation, I think, even if let's say you're I don't know, agreed or whatever that little process was that we went through for the last 5 minutes, it's always helpful for people, for us amongst ourselves, to listen through. I said I need validation, but actually no, I don't really need validation. I'm really happy with just expressing my thoughts, and that's my reality. If you went through that process and now you realize you don't need validation and you just need to express your ideas, that's fantastic. And anybody listening to that process, they might have gone through that. They hearing those thoughts out aloud that they never thought about before, or expressed before, and they might learn something from it. That's fantastic. So that's great. Fear of deprivation. So there's the third kind of thing, and I want to talk about the solution. I really should get to the solutions in a second, but this is the thing. Most people, I've talked to lots of people, and they're really successful. They've got their businesses, yet they're working really hard, and they literally tell the people my age, I'm catching up with friends I've spoke to for 10, 15, whatever years, and they're telling me what they're doing, and they're doing such amazing things, and they're in other parts of the world that they never imagined they would be, yet they're not happy, and yet they're working incredibly hard, and they're working for this distant future, which they don't know they'll ever get to, because there's no actual number or time or years that they're going to work incredibly hard for. And what is it? Well, most of it's the other things as well, and it's also the people I'm thinking of who are my age that I was talking about. They're just worried that they haven't got enough for that rainy day, and they don't even know what that rainy day will look like, what that miserable apocalyptic day will be, that they need even more money than they have, even though they're running businesses and all that kind of stuff. So what do you think? Is that a reality that you see in other people, at least, Claire, that people just worry, they keep collecting stuff or working incredibly hard and being miserable, working really hard in jobs they don't really care about, because that's most people I know, preparing for some apocalyptic day in the future that they can't even describe or something? I don't know. I mean, I do know, that's the best way I can describe it, but like, is that something you've seen in people? Claire, you still there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this thing I've highlighted, I don't know if it's big enough to read. Is it big enough to read?
Yes, I can read it.
Yeah. So
For your deprivation, how much do you need more?
Yeah. Does that make any sense? Well, I just
Not really.
okay. Basically, I've highlighted three areas in which people make their lives difficult, and all related to money and materialism and getting stuff, right? And one of the big ones is fear that something will happen bad, something that they basically, they've got tons of stuff, these people I'm thinking about, yet they need more in case when they get older or something bad happens, and they're worried that they won't have enough to eat or something crazy like that. You aware of people thinking like that?
I suppose that there are people who do worry, yes, about their future.
Okay.
About being poor and old and sick and, needing all kinds of medical care and not being able to afford it. I have a quote, which I haven't posted, about it's okay to be young and poor, but not so, but not to be old and poor. And this is, I think, what frightens a lot of people.
Maybe an old person says that. Do you know what I mean? When they were young, they weren't happy about being poor either, and then they finally think it's okay to be poor when they're young, when they're not young anymore. Yeah, I think it's a very common problem. Again, I think part of the problem is people are in such denial that they don't put it that way. But if they try to think, why are they so worried? Why they keep collecting more and more stuff? It's because they're scared that something will go wrong. Why would a millionaire not give maybe a few pounds or something? They say, why would people be stingy? There's a reason behind it, and that's because they're collecting Anyway, I've tried to explain this idea, and I'm going to give some solutions, but I'm going to whiz through some ideas. I meant that real Hinduism does not worship idols. There is only one God, but others always say that class Hinduism. So, and Noahide laws may also do the same. So people might say, whatever. Uncle, doesn't matter what. If you're following the Noahide laws, it's between you and God, isn't it? Really, I would say that's my short answer. It doesn't matter what other people think. Or maybe the problem is that the interpretation, if it's put in law, that could be another problem. I am familiar with the concept of I'm not, so somebody might have to educate me at some point. Claire wants validation from others as she doesn't get it from God. That could be true. I suppose I'm giving you all the answers. Do you want to, since it's about you, do you want to
Oh,
answer
yes.
Jay?
Well, I think Jay should be the one who, well, he does pretend that he is the happiest and wisest person, but he has no principles. He calls himself a Christian, but he hasn't been confirmed, and he thinks he knows best when he has, well, nothing of use to say because he won't say what he really thinks, you know, to the people who matter. So basically, if you asked him if Christianity is kaput, he will say yes and no, and he won't give you a straight answer because fundamentally he's an Islamophobe, and he will be running to Mexico or fleeing the country when the going gets rough. He won't actually say the truth, and he's got to, not say, not accept the truth. So that's why he calls himself a Christian, in order to say, I'm okay, I've got a religion, I don't need yours, and I'm happy, and I enter the kingdom of heaven every day, the way as often as I enter my shed, I don't, I'm happy, I'm all right. But actually, he's the one always complaining about immigration and Muslims and how the world is going. And
Oh, really, Jay? We need you on. I need to talk about immigration at some point. I was wondering, so that'll be good. Jay, do you have a problem with immigration? If you do, I'd love to have you on. Because,
he's a Tommy Robinson supporter, really. So
are you really, Jay? Confirm, please. And so Claire might be sounding like she's just having a go at Jay, but I do agree that Christians don't have clear-cut enough rules that they follow for it to be of benefit. So that's kind of a summary. But anyway, I don't want to go into that too much, but that's my point of view there. Let's whiz through this. Secular Quranism, if you followed a religion, you would not need validation. Yep, that's true.
well, I need the validation of the political classes, for it to kind of, be accepted and adopted, because that's the whole point of, going on about it.
Okay, so I mean, I would agree with Jay in the sense that if you totally believed in God and God said it's going to be successful, you wouldn't really care. Like, I don't care. My mindset is these ideas are going to be successful. All I'm doing is playing my tiny part. I don't need to see it be successful. That's a really good way to be miserable, to expect the world to change, and then you'll be happy. You know what I mean? That's essentially what you've just said. So that's quite, you can never come back to that, but what do you think, Claire? You're making your idea of success is so difficult because you need these upper classes to agree with you. So, and then not even that, even if they agreed with you and the world didn't change, that wouldn't be very good. So you literally need the world to change for you to be happy.
Well, I think I have to lower my expectations. It's sort of, I will be happy if somebody will just engage with me properly on the subject. Somebody who is a public intellectual, and then I discover that they won't do that. They would rather die than actually talk about the things that I want to talk about, such as, is Christianity kaput? Which I know Jay doesn't like answering because, they sort of see that if they acknowledge that Christianity is kaput, they will find themselves sliding into a position where they have to say, maybe secular Quranism is the thing after all. And they don't want to say that, and I think that is a problem.
So I will quickly say, what does secular Quranism mean? I'll give the short answer. Claire is a agnostic, not sure if God exists or not, yet she follows the rules of the Quran to some extent. I wouldn't say she follows all of them, but she follows some of them, maybe the big ones or something. and she thinks the world would be a better place if we put in law some of those rules. I'm trying to move on. That's why I'm not asking you, Claire. Sorry about that, because we're going to run out of time quickly. I don't know. I'll just. Do you wanna say something about this? Because I've got no idea. Rufa, it is Latin for insanity. Any idea what that means?
I've no idea what he's on about.
Okay. And I'm going to try and click on this one. Why doesn't it click? You both are definitely thought-provoking. It's true. Okay, cool. Now let's whiz through. Let's unclick that so we could focus on this a bit more. So solutions, very quickly. Fear of God. Okay. I've already actually said this, haven't I? Okay. Makes others' points irrelevant. So maybe it sounds theoretical. It definitely works for me. The more I have a God awareness, and then people might say, why the fear of God? Why not the love of God or something like that? My point of view, maybe I'm wrong, but this is why I think it works, okay, is the more I study psychology, and I've said this already, I suppose, but people are so dumb, and if you don't realize you're dumb, and I realize I am very, very, very dumb, right? And you might say, why are you talking to other people? Because we're all so stupid that it literally, like I always say, happiness is easy, but most people are too stupid to realize that, right? So I can be really stupid, and all I have to do is share some very simple ideas, and you'll be much, much happier, right? But the problem is, because we're so dumb, we do things like forget that we're going to die, and we have short-term goals to please other people. That's normal. That's reality. Like, and then if you don't think you'd suffer from that, then you must be stupid. Right? If you can see everybody else suffering from it, and you think you're the odd one out, then that's probably really dumb. It's like, I think there's a really great saying from Jesus. People can see the tiny stone in somebody else's eye, but they can't see the boulder in their own eye. I probably butchered that saying, right? But people can't see their own issues, even if they're huge, but they can see issues in other people, small things. I think
Pot calling the kettle black.
I don't know that one, but there's literally something like somebody could quote it better than me, but it's a really useful tool to be able to see small things in other people, and then hopefully, if you're smart enough, realize you probably suffer from the same deficiencies. But most people don't do that. They ignore the huge problems in themselves, and they pretend they're independent thinkers and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, the reality is, this fear of God is really powerful. It's also an idea in Christianity. Fear of God is the root of all wisdom. It's in the Bible. Similar idea in the Quran is, for those who fear God's judgment, they will have paradise in this life and the next. But the wording is actually they will have two gardens, which means paradise in this life and the next. But anyway, the point is, like, this fear of God is not a miserable thing. The fear of God is a tool to wake you up and going like, oh my God, I'm going to meet God at the end of this thing called life. I better make better choices. And when you worry about that, you really stop worrying about other people. I think that's practically worked. You can try it out yourself. And then when you make better choices, really, you're just going to be happier, because the better choices are not just random better choices. These are choices that God tells you what to do. Because if you have fear of God, you're going to start listening to God. And I will very briefly explain. Look, most people nowadays are suffering from this idea, like, should I get married or not? What's the point of getting married? But people who are Muslim, they go, you know what? God says it. I'm going to frigging do it. And guess what? The result is they are happier. So that kind of thought process works. So that's kind of just the first little bit of this verse of the Quran. The second bit is like, listen and obey. Actually listen to these spiritual ideas of God and obey. What's the benefit of that? Two ends to it. I mean, actually, sorry, I forgot to, Claire. Any thoughts about this fear of God as a tool to make people happy? I mean, did you understand anything I said?
Yes. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. So it's telling people to obey God's laws and to ignore their own base appetites and their evil inclination to do the things that would displease God, and to be conscious of the existence of God in order to be reminded of Him and His laws. So that is the kind of safety rails that we're supposed to use in order to not fall into sin and error.
And the sin and all these error things, people think, oh, God's just being malevolent and trying to make life difficult and make you jumping over hurdles that are completely pointless. Actually, that doesn't make sense. If you look at the world, it's an amazing place. God who creates is an amazing place. So why would he create rules just for the sake of making your life difficult? It's not consistent. So in short, if God makes laws for you, they're for your own good. That's all. And so if you out of fear do the things that you need to do, and actually this is the way it works. Why do Muslims and only religious people do all this marriage stuff or whatever, and then they end up being happy because of it? It's because they fear God. That's what it boils down to. So it works practically. It's not a theory. Anyway, general and spiritual practice. So this is like an idea, a mindset thing that really helps. Okay, but then there's all these other things that don't ignore. God says, don't ignore all the other stuff I'm telling you. Okay, so the fear of God is a very useful tool, but everything else is an amazing tool. Like, if I'm just thinking about the prayers, I'm standing like this as a Muslim, and we start like this: Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. Already, that's an amazing idea. Because why is that an amazing idea? Because human beings are constantly trying to tell the rest of the world they are the greatest. Why are they working so hard to get an expensive car and wear fancy clothes? Because they want to show they are greater than the next person, and that is a stupid way to live, because you're gonna always be in that. You're gonna always be buying stuff you don't need for no good reason to show up to people you don't care about. But once you say God is the greatest, wow, that solves a million problems. And if you keep saying that, that's great. And then what do you say after that? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All thanks are really due to God, who created and maintains the world. That's about right, including yourself. So you can't really take all the praise for anything deep. You didn't even make your mind. That's relieving as well. There's a great TED talk I love about by Elizabeth Gilbert. Do you know her? She wrote
No.
Eat, Pray, Love. Eat, Pray,
No.
Love movie.
No.
Okay.
No.
Anyway, check it. She talks about like the pressure of being a creative, and most creatives are alcoholics and depressed and whatever, and because they feel so much pressure to do things. Okay, but if you in the past creators didn't have that problem, because the idea of a genius used to be a demon in the wall. Okay, something that gave you the ideas and you couldn't take it. In short, it's a great TED talk, really funny. Do listen to it. Just search Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert, maybe TED talk, something about creativity or something. And she talks about examples even in the early Islamic times. Do you know, what do Spanish people say when they're dancing? Ole, 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 right?
Yes.
Right? Do you know where that comes from?
No.
It comes from Allah, Allah. So you know the Spanish.
Oh, ole. It comes from Allah.
Yeah. So even nowadays in Arab culture, if something great happens, they'll say Allah. Basically, any great thing that happens, they'll associate with God, not themselves, right? Even great fighters, Khabib and stuff like that. Have you ever heard of? You don't check out UFC, but he's popularized the word Alhamdulillah. So every time he wins, he's like one of the greatest fighters. But he was always point upwards and say Alhamdulillah. And lots of Westerners know that word now, especially if you're into UFC, which is a fighting thing. That you always thank God and praise God, and then you're free from all kind of stress. And all the other fighters know that he stresses a lot less than they do. They've talked about that as well. And also, not only is this spiritual practice a mindset, but gives a result. God promises in the Quran, in sayings of. Anyway, all over the teachings of Islam, that if you take one step towards me, I'll take 10 steps towards you. Because this God describes himself as the most gracious, the one who gives so much, more than anybody else, right? So, of course, you do a little bit of effort, God will show you himself and show you his help 10 times more. And then you will stop feeling this dread of deprivation one day. So there's you will make progress in that area. It's not just mindset that I'm talking about. You will see a reality of God that makes life much easier. And I know a lot of religious people who experience that. I know Christians, Jews, whatever, people talk like that. I can't remember Jews. I haven't talked to enough Jews. No, I do. Yeah, I do. But anyway, yeah. I want... Okay, so I've done too much talking. Claire, what have you experienced anything from God? I suppose that's a good question. Like, any sort of reality, you prayed to God and something happens or something? No?
I think even atheists, they have their wishes, right? They want things to happen even though they don't believe in God. And I think, all earnest desire for things to happen are in fact prayers, even if the person thinking these things doesn't quite acknowledge the existence of God. Because you're really, asking for something, hoping for something, and thinking it, and it concentrates the mind. And obviously, if you are having a dialogue or internal dialogue with God, it might concentrate your mind and be therapeutic. It's like, well, I want this thing, and then you imagine.
Sure.
God
So you're
saying,
talking about this mindset where it's good to have that mindset, that God will help you and all this kind of stuff. But I'm saying you will practice this thing and you'll see a reality behind it. Maybe, Claire, since you are supporting Islam, I would recommend trying this thing. So like saying, I'm going to do this for you, God, a small thing. Do a small thing that you wouldn't otherwise normally do. And say, I'm doing it for you, God, because that's the reason you do something is very important, because you might benefit from it as well. There might be a side benefit, but ignore the side benefit and say, for example, you don't normally wear a scarf and you say, God, I think you want me to do this. I'm going to wear a scarf just for today and see what happens. Do you get any feedback from God? That would be an interesting challenge. Okay, that's just a thought. What do you think about that? Just thought. I mean, very briefly. I'm trying to wind up, but anyway. What do you think about trying this experiment to see if God is real and actually affects your life? What do you think?
Yeah,
you be up for that kind of
it's
challenge?
a kind of sacrifice, I suppose. If I do this thing, but that I would normally do, will you help me? That kind of idea.
Yeah. And I love the word sacrifice because it's very badly generally not understood very well. Sacrifice means letting go of something for the sake of God. But guess what? God wants you to let go of something stupid. So actually you become more free. Sacrifice actually means freedom. And that's all I'll say about that for now. Being generous. So you can see, I don't want to repeat too many things. So first of all, you do realize when you give away stuff, you realize you don't need the stuff so much and you become less of a slave to it. But the other thing I want to end up with, since we only got 1 minute left, and since I'm in Jordan, this is something I'm constantly learning. Tayo, where have you been? But anyway, he's just joined us now. He's supposed to be in this chat as well. But
Hi,
being
Tayo.
in Jordan, hello Tayo. Being in Jordan, I like. Some people think I think I'm perfect or something crazy. Like, I know I'm so flawed, right? And when I'm here, I feel like I'm in school learning how to be generous and kind and stuff. So people might not realize why I make the videos I do, like the non-live stream stuff where I'm going around Jordan and stuff like that. And there was a video when I was like recording people's beautiful houses, and then somebody pops their head out the window and I'm still recording, and they say come into our house, and then I come into the house and I'm still recording, and I'm they're giving me tea, then coffee, then camel's milk and whatever, and they've never met me. And the reason why I record these things is people like there's on one side there's this theory I'm trying to tell people, and on the other side I'm trying to show them a reality of people when they compete in doing more for each other. Those people are truly so much more happier than the people who are think that they need to collect more stuff to be more safe in their own tiny world. And then the reality is we see the Western world is just becoming more depressed. But if you're giving to people, guess what? You're going to have more friends because you're spending time with people. Like, what kind of friend do you want? The one who's got time for you, who wants to listen to you and gives you stuff because, and even if they don't need to and they're going out their way and stuff like that. I could tell you a billion stories about how generous Arabs are here. And that's how you make friends, and that's how you stay friends and stuff like that. So generosity really makes you happy. And then in short, if anything, if you want to feel successful, that's a great way to be successful. Feel success right now. Just start being generous, selfless generous. Like when you're selfless, then you stop needing to have stuff so much. You get, I'm just going to end with a sentence, I suppose, to explain it. Like, get out of the self-centered world. When you're in a self-centered world, you're feeling your worries and your thoughts a lot. When you're in other-centered world, you feel other people's thoughts and feelings, and you stop worrying about your own because you're not centered here. You're centered elsewhere, and you just enjoy life and you appreciate all the beautiful things all around us. Do you want to say something to? Did any of that make sense? Did any? You know what, Claire? Tell me one takeaway from this conversation that you like most.
Oh, from your notes.
Anything that comes to mind, like unfiltered, like wherever you feel. I hope you feel something was useful, but who knows?
Well, I mean, the attempt to discuss, to decide what gives us happiness, I think is important. I'm afraid I can only remember what I said, and I think happiness is getting us what we want. Whether the thing that we want actually makes us happy is another thing altogether, because sometimes we get the thing we want and it makes us very unhappy. So I think it's a time of time. It's also a problem of time scale. So you might get what you want today, but tomorrow it'll make you unhappy, and the day after you might have realized that you have completely ruined your life, for example. So it's a matter of time scale. And I guess that the religious perspective of it is that if we focus on the afterlife and pleasing God and fearing God, and therefore wanting to please Him and obeying His laws, even though we don't actually want to, and we think that we have more pleasurable things to do, it may result in us being happy in our afterlife, if such a thing exists. And I think that is really the tension. We can't decide between pleasing ourselves in the short term or the medium term or the long term or the afterlife, and we just can't decide on these things unless we make up our mind one way or another whether we believe in God or not.
I am very, very pleased with that. I mean, we've had some mean comments on the side, but they're really funny as well. Did you see the last one? That's quite funny.
Yes, that's quite good. I mean, I sort of realised that as soon as I said it.
No, but I don't think it's true though. But we'll put it on the screen because it's so funny, right? It's not true because I feel like you. I won't say too much, but I think you did absorb a lot, and we kind of. Let's say the word struggled through it and say, oh, I do believe in this, I don't believe in it. And I think what you said in the beginning was different to what you said at the end. Even in the beginning of your sentence, you don't. Anyway, I won't even say wherever the thoughts came from that you just expressed, I think they were beautiful. I think if anybody can benefit just from those thoughts, even if you benefit from your own thoughts, let's say, That is fantastic. I'm very pleased with that. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I appreciate your time. And I think we had some fun as well. What do you think?
Yes, I think we did. We
Cool.
had a good laugh, and I think that
Yes.
they enjoyed playing in the chat with each other. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Thanks, guys. There were some
Thanks.
good comments. Okay, all right. And as always, love your participation, your bluntness, and your time especially. Thank you, Claire. Bye.
Yes, and I'll see you all soon in my next stream.
Yep. See you then.
Okay,
Bye. Salam. Peace be upon you.
bye bye.